So what we have here is a movie based on a true story about a man who decides to walk across the US. Now, why would someone do something like that, you may ask? And it's a reasonable question. And in this case, the guy wants to raise awareness for the dangers of bullying. So it's a noble cause at least, but it certainly is a strange way to go about it. However, the movie does get into the backstory on how and why he ended up embarking on this journey. And you know, my biggest worry about this movie was that it would end up being boring. Because watching a guy walk across the country probably isn't the most exciting premise I've ever heard of. But I have to say that the movie did a surprisingly good job at keeping me engaged. Primarily because it doesn't really follow his walk that much, instead it shows us a lot of flashbacks that fill in the gaps and tell us what we need to know about what happened before. And when we do follow him on his walk, the movie usually finds ways to keep those scenes interesting as well. Because he runs into a lot of people along the way and talks to them. In fact, one of the best scenes, or actually the best scene in the entire film, takes place rather late in the movie, and it's when he runs into this cop and they have a talk out on the porch. I mean, that scene was just phenomenal. Acting, writing, direction, everything was great. Now, unfortunately, the rest of the movie wasn't quite on that level, but it wasn't bad. The whole thing was just remarkably solid, and I didn't really have any major issues with it. But at the same time, very few things stood out as being much more than mediocre too. But there were some emotional scenes that did deliver the kind of impactful stuff you'd expect from a movie like this. And I would say that this is one of the more nuanced performances I've seen from Mark Wahlberg too, which it pretty much needed to be because the character is complicated and deeply flawed, like we all are I guess, but he's not necessarily the most likable guy. And not the best dad either, but also far from the worst dad or the worst guy around. But as I said, he's flawed and he's got some work to do to try to better himself. Which does make him a compelling and realistic feeling character too. Now when it comes to the core of the story and his reason for going on the walk, it's all about bullying and the effects of bullying, and you'd think that would be pretty much a clear-cut issue at this point. I mean, everyone's against bullying, right? But as the movie points out, no. Otherwise it wouldn't be an issue, would it? Bullying is still very much an issue, and it stems from treating people who are different differently, for no other reason than that they're not like you or maybe even the majority of people. And what it basically boils down to is just ignorance and some weird ingrained prejudices people have. And you know, hearing stories like this is always terrible. Whenever someone's the victim of serious systematic bullying, it's a problem. But at the same time, how do you actually get rid of it? You gotta get at the root cause, right? You gotta get people to be more open-minded and less judgmental against people who are a bit different. But that's much easier said than done, and I certainly have no real solutions other than, I guess, open discourse and simply spreading knowledge and information that might offer some different perspectives. And also encouraging people to maybe take a look in the mirror and realize they're probably different in some ways too. But yeah, I'm not gonna save the world from bullying, and neither will this movie. Because it certainly doesn't offer any solutions either. It just wants to spread awareness, I guess, and that's better than nothing. But at the same time, it's a pretty decent movie, so I'm gonna go ahead and give this one a solid 6. Boop. However, would I recommend it? I don't know. If you think it sounds interesting, maybe give it a look. And if it doesn't, you can just skip it or do whatever you think is right. After all, I'm not gonna bully you into watching this. But hey, what are your thoughts on this? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a thumbs up or sub to the channel, because that would be fantastic.